Welcome to New York Jazz Academy Online. I am Javier Rao and I will be teaching Introduction to Jazz Theory and Notation. If you've already registered for this class, fantastic. I'm really looking forward to not just sharing with you a lot of what I know about jazz theory and notation, but also hearing from you and really helping you on your own musical journey. It's different for every single person. I really do feel that a lot of people misunderstand music theory. They think that it's just a series of names and numbers that they've got to memorize, and once they have all of that, then they're good to go and they can move on to what really matters, the performing and that sort of thing. Music theory really isn't that way. It's actually a living, breathing entity, and the more that we understand in music theory, the closer we really can get to making beautiful, meaningful music. This class, it's going to cover really quite a lot of ground. The really nice thing about music theory, though, is you can expand upon the basics. You can dive deeper and deeper into very simple concepts like just the major scale. And the more that you understand about some of these fundamentals, the more you start making connections into more advanced concepts in jazz like bebop. So a quick overview. What are we dealing with here? Well, there is an introduction. We've got to cover some of the most fundamental aspects in music. Issues like scale construction, major, minor. We will dip into slightly more advanced scale concepts like diminished scales, augmented scales, variations on different minor scales. The wonderful thing about scales is they're all interconnected, so as you get really confident with one type of scale, you can also develop fluency at the exact same time with other scales. Music, however, is not just about chord scale theory. Chord scale theory is what I call that sort of music theory idea where you see a chord on paper and you just plug in a certain scale. That's not really what music is about. So we're going to look more intently at music theory, trying to understand it in a more meaningful way that really does produce results. At the end of the day, I think you should work on music theory to become a better player or composer. That's really it. I'm not a big fan of just learning music theory for the sake of music theory. Maybe that's because I'm also a composer and performer. But at the end of the day, that's what I use it for. We're going to move from scales into modes, which are forms of scales. We're going to eventually head toward issues specific to certain chord progressions, really looking at some classic pieces, some classic forms. We have a big unit that we cover on the blues, where we take it all the way from traditional blues through bebop blues. We're going to be looking at some solos, some transcriptions by really wonderful jazz artists, ranging from Charlie Parker to Dexter Gordon. Also looking at some really classic pieces in the jazz canon, just great compositions by great jazz composers. Along the way, you're going to have all sorts of questions, and what I love about the New York Jazz Academy Online format is that you're going to have access to all sorts of PDFs. Of course, this lecture series that takes you through all 10 topics. You're also going to have seminars that you can attend online, not just with me as the teacher, but also with other students enrolled in the class. Another nice thing about the format is technically it's 10 weeks long, and that works out perfectly because there are 10 topics. However, if for some reason you get really busy for a couple weeks, let's say you have to head out of town, or maybe something happens where it's taking time away from the class, that's okay, because on other weeks you can still be working on the material. So if you're finding that over a 10-week period you only have 6 weeks, for instance, where you can really dive deeply into this, you'll be able to, and you'll really come out ahead because all of the information is available to you online. I love the online format because if we're talking about a Dexter Gordon piece, we can go and hear Dexter Gordon play it, possibly even watch him in concert, and that's a beautiful thing, and that can all be done in real time while you're working on this material. So I really am looking forward to helping you continue this journey in music. If you have never studied any notation or any jazz theory, I gotta say, before you really get active in this class, you really need to go and take our online music notation basics class. Okay, that's going to give you an overview that you really need with note reading. This course makes some assumptions about you as a player and a musician. So I think that if you do have any questions about that, or you're wondering if you've enrolled in the right class, certainly let us know what your questions might be, so we can kind of take care of things before things snowball. I think we pace it well so that the material is something you can really process, but I think it's worth checking in if you have any reservations or maybe some questions about where you are in this process. The thing about jazz is that it's an ocean of material. We are like undersea explorers. The exploration is never ending. Just look at John Coltrane, one of the greatest jazz musicians who ever lived, and he practiced constantly because he was always searching for more, trying to learn more and more. So on that note, let's wrap up. We're going to start the class now. Again, I'm Javier Arau, and I really look forward to beginning this process with you in jazz theory and notation.